Hello guys, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel. My name is Ifunaya, and if you're new on this space, on this channel, you're very much welcome. So today we're going to be learning how to wrap up our bra cup to look like this, and yeah, from this to this. So if that's something you're interested in, please keep on watching, and if you've not subscribed, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, share, and so guys, for this tutorial, I'm going to be making use of this bra cup. I have bra cup 40 and I'm supposed to be making use of bra cup 38, but I went with size 40 because I actually like working with a bra cup that is slightly bigger than the actual size that I'm supposed to work with. So, and I have my fabric right here, and this is the little piece of fabric I'm going to be working with. I have my pins as well, and then my pen and my chalk. So let's get right into the video. So guys, the first thing I'm going to do is to fold my bra cup into two. Mind you, I am not pressing that side because I don't want the bra cup to be flat. So on this point right here, I'm going to give it a notch with my scissors so as to determine the center of the bra cup. So this is me giving it a notch on this point right here. I'll also do the same on the second bra cup as well. So guys, the reason for doing this is so that we're going to determine the center point of the bra cup. And so now that I'm done with it, this is what it looks like. You can see the notch. And so the next thing I want to do now is to place my tape on that point where I marked my notch, and then I'm going to mark 2 inches on the bra cup, just like this. And so I'm making use of a pen because I actually want it to be quite visible for you. So this is what it looks like, as you can see. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to fold my bra cup inside out carefully, and while doing this you have to be very careful so that it doesn't get flat. So what I'm just going to do now is from that point where I marked my center, please watch very carefully, I'm going to be marking half of an inch on this point, and so I'll connect it to this point just like a dart. You know how we draw our darts? That is exactly what I'm going to be doing on this bra cup. And so now that I'm done with that, I'll go over to my sewing machine and then I'll stitch it up like this on this part where I use my pen to draw the line. So guys, as you can see, I am done doing that, and this is what it looks like. I made use of a black thread to stitch it up so that it's going to be visible, and you can see the bra cup looks more pronounced. It's giving this very round and firm shape compared to the first bra cup. You can compare the both of them, and as you can see, the one with the dart looks very pronounced and very firm, and that's the reason for marking out that dart on the bra cup. And that is why I made use of bra cup 40 instead of bra cup 38, so that after doing this dart it fits perfectly. So this is what it looks like now. So the next thing I want to do now is to start working on my fabric. And so now, working on the fabric, I'm just folding my fabric into two, as you can see me doing, and then after doing this like this, I also fold it up just like this again, and after doing that I'll straighten up all the edges properly so that it's going to be very easy for me to work with. And so the next thing I want to do now is to get my tape, and then I'll place my tape on the center point, which is this point. You can see me doing it like this, and I would mark 5.5 inch on my fabric. And so still placing my tape on that center point, I would mark 5.5 inch again, and then I'll just take a round measurement all the way to the end of this fabric. So after marking it out, the next thing I want to do is to take my scissors, and then I'm just going to cut it out on the point where I marked my 5.5 inch. And after doing that, now I'm just going to open up my fabric, and as you can see, I have a very big circle, or rather a medium size perfect circle. And so the next thing I want to do now is to fold my fabric again the same way it was when I actually cut it in the beginning, so that I'm going to get the center of the of this fabric. So this is just me folding it, and then I'm making use of my chalk to mark it up right here, or you can also give it a notch if you want. So I already gave it a notch, and then I'm just going to mark it with my chalk again. And so on this top part right here, I'm just going to place my tape there, and then I'll mark 1 inch just like this. And so I'll connect that 1 inch to this center point right here. You can make use of a ruler, you can make use of a freehand sketch. So I'm just going to make use of my freehand to do that. And so on the other end, I will actually mark the same 1 inch that I marked on the top part, and after doing it, I'm also going to connect it to the center point as well. So now that I'm done marking it on this center point right here, I'm just going to blend both joinings together so it's not going to be so sharp. And after doing that, I'll just make use of my scissors to cut it out. So this is what it looks like after cutting, and so the next thing I want to do now is to cut another one. And since I want to make use of this same fabric as the lining, I'm just going to place it on my fabric and then cut it out. But then if you're working with a normal lining, you will just place it on your normal lining and then you cut it out. But since I want to also cut out for the other bra cup, I'll also fold it into 3 so that I have 2 for the other bra cup and then the other one for the lining for the first bra cup which I'm working with. So this is just basically what I'm doing right now. Okay, so now I'm done cutting and this is what I have. And like I said earlier, I have 2 for the first bra cup and the other 2 for the other bra cup. So, and this same fabric is serving as my lining. So if you count it, we have 4 pieces each, 2 for the lining and 2 for the bra cup. So what I'm just going to do now is to go over to my sewing machine and then I'll stitch it up, making use of 1/2 inch on this point right here. But I want to design my bra cup. I just don't want to make it plain, so I'm just going to make use of a bias to do a little bit of pattern before I stitch it up. And so to do that now, I'm just going to place the one which is going to be serving as the lining. I'll place that aside, and so that I'll start working with the one which I'm going to use to wrap up the bra cup. So this is me now folding it into 2 so that I can get the center of this point right here. I also do the same for the other end as well. And so after doing that now, I'll make use of my bias. I'll place it on the fabric, making sure that on the front part of the fabric, making sure that my bias is starting on the point where I gave a notch and it's stopping at that point where I gave a notch as well. So I'll go over to my sewing machine and then I'll sew it up. And so after doing that now, I'll place the other part on top of it just like this, and that's after stitching the bias to the actual fabric. After doing this, I would place this other one just like this, and then I would stitch it up with 1/2 inch. So guys, you can see what it looks like, and I also went ahead to give it a proper ironing. You can see I ironed it out, I opened it up and I ironed it, and I also did the same for the part which is serving as the lining. And so the next thing I want to do now is to still make use of my bias, and then I'll also place it up on this point right here because I want to have this design on it. And so I'll also go over to my sewing machine and then I'll stitch it up. But before you do that, make sure you iron your stitch so that it's going to relax properly and you don't have any fold. So after stitching it up, this is what it looks like. You can see it looks very neat. I didn't really do so much here. So the next thing I want to do now is to determine the center of this bra cup. The top part, you know, when we started initially, it was just the lower part which we gave a notch. And so now after I've given it a notch on the top part of the bra cup, the next thing I want to do now is to place this fabric right here on the bra cup, and then we start spinning. And whatever you do, make sure that the point where you have your bias, you are making sure that it's sitting properly on the point where you have a notch. And so after doing that, now you just go ahead to pin it up. Now I want to pin up this top part on the point where I have a notch. And so before you do that, you make sure that the bra cup is sitting properly on the fabric, making sure that there's no extra fold from top to bottom. So I'm just marking out a straight line so that I would know where I'm going to pin up, and the point where I marked my notch is where I'm going to pin up on the fabric. And after doing that, basically you just pin up your fabric to your bra cup all around. And while doing that, you have to be very, very careful so that there's no fold, there's no extra fold, and your work doesn't come out looking very rough. So So now that I'm done pinning it up all around, I'm cutting it out, and as you can see, while I'm cutting out, I'm leaving about half of an inch or close to half of an inch allowance on both sides, so that it's going to be very easy to work with while I stitch. And yeah, so after doing that, now I'll just go over to my sewing machine, and then I'll stitch it up on the tip of the bra cup, and you're going to stitch it up properly so that it doesn't lose. Okay, so this is what it looks like now after stitching. You can see it looks very relaxed in the fabric. The cup looks very relaxed in the fabric. So now I'm just going to use my scissors to cut out the remaining excess, because I won't be working with it. So yeah, so after doing that, now the next thing I want to do now is to work on the lining piece. So guys, now to work on the lining piece, the next thing I want to do now is to place my lining piece inside my bra cup. And as you can see, the point where I have a joining must meet the point where our bias is sitting. So after making sure that they are both meeting, I'll make use of my pin to pin it up on this point, and then I'll do the same for the other end as well. But before you do that, you make sure that your lining piece is sitting properly inside your bra cup, because you wouldn't want it to squeeze your bra cup, or you wouldn't want it to not fit your bra cup when you're done. So after you've made sure that it's sitting properly, you just pin it up on the other end, and then if possible you can pin it up in the center of the bra cup if it's going to be a bit difficult for you to work with. So after doing that, now I'm just going to make use of my pin to pin it up all around. Then after doing that, you just cut it, and that's it for the lining piece. So guys, after cutting it out, now I'm taking out my pins, and yeah, that's it for the cutting of the lining, and basically we are done with this tutorial. So if you look closely, you will notice that this bra cup the final look of this bra cup is quite smaller than the actual bra cup that we started working with, and that was why I said I'm working with a bra cup that is slightly bigger than the actual bra cup I'm supposed to work with, so that after putting that dart on the bra cup and every other thing, it's going to fit perfectly. So thank you so much guys for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe if you've not subscribed. Give a thumbs up to this video, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye.